Happening now, residents report hearing a loud explosion prior to a fire that destroyed an apartment yesterday in Jamestown. What we know next. Plus, the Democrat candidate for Chautauqua County Executive joins us live to talk about his campaign issues here in the county and reflect on yesterday's Black Lives Matter protest.
Well, it's a seasonable day out there today with lots of sunshine, but it's not going to be staying that way. We crank up the heat by the middle of the week with some severe storms possible. We'll talk about it next. The News at Noon starts now.
Live and on demand, this is WNY News Now.
And thanks for joining us for WNY News Now. I'm Justin Gould. Residents living on Forest Avenue say they heard a loud explosion prior to a fire that destroyed a multi-unit apartment yesterday. The Jamestown Fire Department tells us that investigators believe the fire at 262 Forest Avenue was caused by an incendiary device and was likely intentionally set. In total, they say 12 people were displaced there. In addition, a dog and 2 cats perished in the blaze. A woman living in the area told WNY News Now that she heard a loud boom around the time the fire was reported. Fire officials say that the fire likely started in the lower section of the building and then continued to rise throughout it. The structure has since been completely demolished. Well, more than 200 people gathered at Jamestown's Dow Park yesterday afternoon to protest racism, brutality, and the death of George Floyd. Organizers say that while bullets have been flying and buildings burning nationwide, Jamestown is standing out as different, protesting in peace. Floyd's death at the hands of 4 police officers in Minnesota has led to protests and riots across the nation. The crowd kneeled in silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds out of respect and solidarity for Mr. Floyd. The time is based on how long police hit their knee on his neck. Speaker Justin Hubbard led the kneeling portion of the protest. He says there are certain turning points in history, and this is one of them.
I think that there are moments in history. French Revolution, American Civil War, American Civil Rights Movement, the breaking down of the Berlin Wall, moments in history. This is our moment. This is your moment right now.
Hubbard says an example of doing something is the reinstatement of the Jamestown Human Rights Commission, which Mayor Sundquist announced on Friday. Participants were asked to register upon arrival and were greeted with a reminder to remain peaceful. There was also a voter registration drive, and Black Lives Matter t-shirt and tank tops were handed out to those in attendance. Well, congressional leaders from several states, including here in New York, will unveil a new criminal justice reform bill today, addressing the ongoing protests for equal justice for Black Americans. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer believes that it will go a long way to reforming police practice and bringing more racial justice.
It's called the Justice in Policing Act. It's going to be a broad, comprehensive measure, the strongest ever introduced, to bring more fairness and racial equality to police departments throughout the country. It has 3 major buckets. 1, accountability. 2, transparency. 3, training and policies.
The Congressional Black Caucus is also preparing a package of bills that includes a ban on chokeholds. New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo announced yesterday that graduations can happen here in the state as soon as June 26th, but there are several restrictions that do come with it. As the COVID-19 data continues to trend in the right direction, the governor says he's speeding up the reopening process, and he released guidelines for high school graduations. He says that the state will allow graduations to happen on June 26th, but they have to happen outdoors and be limited to 150 people. Now the question is, what do schools do with more than 150 graduating seniors? The governor didn't elaborate specifically during his briefing yesterday. He also announced in an executive order extending the school budget voting deadline. Ballots can now be accepted through hand delivery until 5 p.m. on June 9th and received by mail through June 16th. Well, the date when DMV locations here in Chautauqua County will reopen to the public still remains unknown. Chautauqua County Clerk Larry Barmore says that even though New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo announced last week that DMVs in the state would reopen on Tuesday, he says that only applies to certain state-run locations. The clerk says currently vehicle registrations can be reviewed by drop box or mail-in, as well as plate surrenders and new vehicle registrations. When DMVs reopen, Barmore says that those services will continue to be done remotely. Services that do require an in-person visit, like CDL testing, licensing, driver's license renewals, and other upgrades, are currently unavailable. The clerk says that when the reopening does happen, in-person visits will require an appointment. Now, currently, the local DMV is under orders by the state to work at 40% staffing, so he asked residents to be patient when mailing or placing drop box requests. Well, we thank you all so much for joining us here on WNY News Now as we start a new week. Let's now get a check of our First Defense weather forecast with Chief Forecaster Dakota Hunter, who's standing by with a pretty good view over Presque Isle. Dakota, looking like a nice day out there.
Yes, it is. It's a nice day out there. There's not a lot of clouds in the sky. Actually, this is the look from the Presque Isle Beach Sky Vision camera. Not a cloud in the sky today, and it's going to remain that way today, but the temperatures are seasonable. Don't get used to that because we're cranking up the heat as we go through the middle of the week. Nothing on the satellite and radar composite. And again, it's going to remain that way through the day. Temperatures in the 70s today, low humidity. It is going to be feeling like early June, like it's supposed to be feeling around here this time of the year. But as we know, the humidity will be coming back. Again, we showed this graphic on the air on Friday. Again, the dew point temperatures, it measures the moisture content in the atmosphere. The more moisture there is, the harder it is for your skins to essentially evaporate that moisture off. So when we get into the 60s and 70s for dew point temperatures, that's when you feel the stickum in the air, and it will be coming back once again as we go through the middle of the week with very warm temperatures, almost record-breaking. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. 66 was the high yesterday, 47 was a low this morning. 94 is the record high for this date, safe for this year, and 31 was set back in 1977 for the official low for this date back then. So lots of sunshine through the afternoon, seasonable and comfortable, not much wind, so that's either good or bad, depending on which way you want to take it. 71 on the hills to 77 near the Lake Erie shoreline, light winds, but we crank up the heater as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday. And Wednesday, some strong to severe thunderstorms likely in the afternoon. We'll break it all down a little bit later on in the show. Justin?
All right, Dakota, looks like summer is here. Thank you very much. Real quick, let's say hello to Ray, Debbie, Becky. Great to see you here. Thank you so much for joining us on the live. Good to see David. Good to see Pam and Rory watching as well. Coming up next, the Democrat candidate for Chautauqua County Executive joins us live to talk about his campaign and issues that he's fighting for in the county. Stay with us as WNY News Now continues.
With coverage that matters. This is WNY News Now.
EagleZip.com is your local one-stop shop for all of your home and business computer needs. Located on Fluvanna Avenue Extension, just outside of Jamestown, EagleZip.com sells and services all brands of desktops and laptops, as well as servers and network equipment for your business. All new computer sales include transferring your data from your old computer plus a 2-year warranty. Call EagleZip.com today.
Stop by EagleZip.com today and let us make computers easy for you. When you're on the go, stay in the know by downloading the WNY News Now mobile app. Stay up to date on local news, weather, and sports that matter to you. Plus, subscribe to breaking news and weather alerts from the team that puts coverage first. In addition, watch news as it happens with the Southern Tier's only 24/7 streaming network. Download the WNY News Now app right now. It's free on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store.
You're watching WNY News Now, where coverage comes first.
And welcome back to WNY News Now. Election 2020 is only a few months away, and a big race is underway right now in Chautauqua County. Joining us on the program is Dunkirk resident and City Attorney Richard Morris-Rowe, the Democrat candidate for Chautauqua County Executive, to talk more about his campaign and big issues that the county is facing right now. Sir, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin.
First, I wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our audience and explain why you've decided to run for office.
Sure. Again, my name is Rich Morrisrow. I'm a resident of Dunkirk, recently arrived. Was living in Buffalo with my family for the last 20 years. And originally I'm from East Chicago, Indiana, another stop on the Rust Belt, Steel City, much like Lackawanna and Dunkirk. I came to Dunkirk because I saw opportunity. And I saw a need for the services I provide. And I saw a community that's a little bit behind the curve that Buffalo's on in terms of rebuilding itself and resuscitating from a lot of years of decline after heavy industry started moving more and more either to the south or overseas. And as I've been in Dunkirk, I've noticed how so much of what happens is a function of the relationship of the various levels of government working together. And priming the pump for private development and private industry to come into or to expand or to grow into our communities. And I think the county is at a crucial point in that fulcrum between state and federal resources and the local governments who make the deciding decisions and actually host these industries, small businesses, startups, et cetera. So I think the county plays a crucial role. And Chautauqua County is kind of at a point of we've got to make something happen or things are going to continue going south. We've had some successes and the county has some great assets. And I'm talking pre-COVID-19, but our tax base is shrinking. We're losing some companies and we're losing population, although the curve is no longer as steep as it was in the 70s and 80s. Thank you for that. But we still have to do more. We need to bring in residents. We need to bring in homeowners, and we need to bring in businesses, because ultimately what floats government services is property, sales, and income tax. And at the county level, it's a combination of property tax and sales tax. And our tax base is shrinking. So we need to do something to reverse that. So we were having some issues already before COVID-19. The county, I believe, just raised the sales tax to kind of cover some of that. And then the novel coronavirus hit us. And that's made a huge difference. And we've had to not only react on the health and a public health way, but we've also had to worry about, slowing down the economy enough to slow down the human interaction that lets this virus flow and grow. But now we're on what do we do next? And, we're unpausing as a state. And as a county, thankfully, we're in phase 2 and hopefully heading towards phase 3. But we've had an uptick in cases. So it's one of those darned if you do, darned if you don't. We want the economy to get back going. I have a private law practice as well. I would love for the courts to reopen fully. That's been in stasis for 3 months as well. So it's affected my business. I've had to do furloughs, and I've lost employees as a result. And
you're right in that sense, where it's unfortunate that a lot of businesses are facing this type of these types of decisions where they have been shut down for so long, and now they're finally getting to the point where they can reopen with some restrictions because of the public health crisis, which I want to touch on here in a moment. But first, you were at the protest there yesterday at Dow Park, where county residents took to the street to voice their displeasure surrounding the George Floyd killing. For you, seeing these peaceful protests here in Chautauqua County and this conversation that residents are having, what does that have to say about the community that you see here? And then going forward as executive, how would you hear their call and take their call to create the change that they're demanding?
Well, a few things have to happen. I mean, first, I really appreciate those that came out in Dow Park, not only yesterday, but last week, Sunday as well. I was there quietly, watched and observed. And I was also in Dunkirk. We had a much larger gathering than originally thought on Saturday. led by 3 Dunkirk High School graduates who are graduating this year in a few weeks. And my message then is my message now is we have to take this energy, this anger, this frustration, and it's building at this moment globally. I mean, the wonder of social media is that this movement has expanded as fast as the coronavirus worldwide. And it's no longer just about George Floyd, and it's no longer about Minneapolis. And I think the organizers at the speech yesterday and some of the speakers, it's also a historic issue. This is not an issue that just happened in a void. This issue has been going on and off, publicly sanctioned violence for 400 years, whether it was slave owners, whether it was sharecroppers, whether it was the Ku Klux Klan, or whether we're talking about law enforcement. And obviously not all of that is the same, but there's been publicly sanctioned and legally sanctioned violence against African Americans and others of color for some time. So I think we're at a precipice now in 2020 where we need to make some changes, both in our public health apparatus and in our communities. And as county executive, again, some of the, you were reporting earlier, there's some changes being proposed at the state and federal level, and that's very important. And at the county and municipal level, that's where most law enforcement happens, and that's where the rubber meets the road. And the actions we have to take there is to address this issue holistically, in that it's not just a police issue, but it is a police issue. It's not just an issue of socioeconomics, but that's a huge part of it, and social determinants of health, and the reasons why police are getting more and more involved in our everyday lives. Those are issues that we need to address. And at the police level, it's collective bargaining agreements is where the action's at. I've learned as city attorney. We're in the midst of renegotiating our collective bargaining agreement for Dunkirk. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And so any changes that we're going to make outside of state and federal law have to be built into those collective bargaining agreements. And that goes for the county, for the sheriff's department, and that goes for each individual municipality that has its own law enforcement, like Dunkirk Police and Jamestown Police. Those changes include preventive measures. I'm sorry, Justin.
No,
those changes include accountability, and those changes include more community involvement. One of the things I think that's happened with the war on drugs since the 1960s is that police in many neighborhoods and cities became an occupying force and no longer a part of the fabric of the community. You know, Officer O'Leary lived around the corner, and he walked to work, and he walked the beat. That model has changed so much in the last half century. And so I think we need to revisit police modeling it. So it isn't just a function of training and accountability. It isn't just a function of bias, but it's also a function of how we do business. Policing maybe has to be relooked at. And it's not a function of getting rid of police, as some folks are proposing. But I think we really have to rethink and also integrate, because I think social services more and more has to be integrated into policing. And I think there has to be more of a connection between truancy issues with the schools, policing, and also with the courts in terms of the drug and the opioid courts, because there's a continuing of issues here. It isn't just race, it isn't just culture, it isn't just poverty, it isn't just drugs, it's the interaction, the dynamic interaction of all of these things. And that has to be addressed at all levels of government. And I hope to be able to address it at the county level.
And you're right to that point, is everything is intertwined. Everything is connected, whether you're looking at the drug epidemic, at police brutality, at even the financial stance of budgets. And to your point, they discussed that, not this past weekend, but the previous, where Chief Snellings of Jamestown Police, Sheriff Quattrone, and Mayor Sundquist here attended for over an hour and had that Q&A. And they said that one thing maybe we should do is have police on walking beats, so to speak, where they get to know the community a little bit better. They're people from the community. They live here, specifically for us, would be in Jamestown. And we don't have a ton more time to discuss, so I want to get to my other questions here, so I don't want to seem like I'm trying to cut you off, sir. But in regards to budgets and financial situation, COVID-19 has really done a number, not just here, but across the whole nation. If elected to the county executive seat, I imagine you're going to be facing a lot of really tough decisions that officials are trying to work on even now. For you, what's the best way for us to get on track? Is it reopen businesses and let the economy thrive, or is it to try to get support from other areas outside of Western New York?
I think it's both, Justin. I think, frankly, we have to continue letting the economy open up. We have to keep growing the economy locally so that we, again, can resuscitate that tax base. But, again, if we do not get state and or federal assistance, you're looking at least 20% cuts across the board, not only in Chautauqua County, but in Jamestown city government, in Dunkirk city government, and across all the towns and villages of Chautauqua County. It's going to be painful. And the only way we address that without that help, because the tax base isn't going to feed that gap overnight, is looking at a combination of tax increases, layoffs, potential renegotiating of collective bargaining agreements, and or any other creative ideas are on the table. One of the things that I think we need to do more of as government officials is work with the public sector, with the private sector, and with the nonprofits to come up with creative solutions. We can't be afraid to try something new. But at the end of the day, you either have to cut costs or grow income, or some combination thereof. So there's going to be very tough conversations at all levels of government, Justin.
And a lot of businesses already, unfortunately, have announced that they're either doing layoffs or they're not going to reopen this side of their company, or a few here have already said that they're closing up shop. How can we increase I would imagine, new ideas and bring new entrepreneurs to the area to try to reinvent what we've been doing?
One of the difficulties Chautauqua County faces is that demographically, the growth has been going to the major cities in terms of entrepreneurship, startup ecosystems, especially in the tech sector. We have to find a way to attract that to smaller cities and to more rural communities. I think the flip side of COVID-19 is it showed how much we can do remotely, and it showed how much we can do and how attractive a community of this scale and of this density can be if somebody wants to get out of very dense communities such as New York City, Cleveland, and even to a lesser extent Buffalo, that we're an option. And I think that's something we have to market hard as a community, working with the real estate industry and working with the chambers of commerce.
And one big thing that they've pushed here is tourism with the National Comedy Center. The state has invested a lot of money in that, a lot of local money, a lot of local businesses relying on that. And now this summer, we're not going to have their Lucille Ball Comedy Festival. Hearing that, what's your take on the financial repercussion of it? We've had others who have said it's not going to be as bad as we can think, because we can still try, as we get to phase 4, have some sort of events. But a lot of people are very concerned that this is going to be something that's going to have a long impact on us.
I think the impact's going to be long, and it's going to be deep in the sense that it's going to affect all sectors of the economy. The tourism industry, hospitality, entertainment, they've been hit the hardest by far. And that's a big part of our waterfront economy here in Dunkirk, along Chautauqua Lake, as well as, institutes like the National Comedy Center. It's not going to be an easy way back. And we missed a lot of calendar dates and have had to postpone a lot of dates and cancel a lot of events that drive a lot of traffic in these communities. I know Dunkirk, just losing the 4th of July and our boat race is going to be a huge bump, negative bump to our community. And I assume events such as the Comedy Center's events are going to do the same in Jamestown. It's nothing that we can fix overnight. We have to persevere, and we have to keep pushing forward. And that's the best that I can offer. I mean, there's no magic bullet to this, unfortunately.
And finally, as you mentioned, one of the biggest resources for our area tax-wise is Chautauqua Lake. And for quite some time, there's been a big effort to clean it up after harmful algae blooms and other issues have plagued it for many, many years. For you, what type of plan could you offer to try to save that resource?
I think it's a matter of getting the various groups that have been active and involved in these issues to come together and work together in some way to meet consensus and to have compromise solutions. I know there are those that worry about sustainability and the environmental impacts of doing a lot of herbicide treatments. There are others that want to do more physical or more sort of less environmentally damaging. It seems like, unfortunately, we're going to have to do some combination and come to some kind of compromise solution. But again, the Chautauqua Lake and Lake Erie are our two biggest assets in Chautauqua County. If we don't treat them right, and if we kill them for short-term success, we're doing damage to Chautauqua County and the environment overall long-term. So it's a balancing act.
It certainly is. All right, Richard Morrisroe, the Democrat candidate for Chautauqua County Executive, joining us today. Sir, great conversation. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.
Now let's get a check of our weather forecast with Dakota.
Well, as you look outside from atop of the Doubletree Hotel, nothing but sunshine in the sky right now. We're at 66 as of noon hour at the Jamestown Airport. Very light winds south at 3, and there's not going to be a whole lot of wind out there, so that's either good or bad, depending on which way you want to take this. And if you want to get out on the lake today, the Lake Erie water temperatures have spiked over the weekend. 61 is the current water temperature off Buffalo, 64 off Erie. Southwest winds 5 to 10 knots and wave heights a foot or less. So great to get out on the lake. Might not be a bad idea for tomorrow, and we'll show you why a little bit later on here. This is what's left of Cristobal right here. It is now a tropical depression. It made landfall south of New Orleans yesterday. It is now working inland, and you can still see the moisture bands wrapping back around the center of circulation. This is actually going to go up into the upper Great Lakes region. We will likely not be impacted by this. It's going to be further off to our west, but there was some signs maybe Wednesday with a cold front moving through. We could see some moisture, but it's looking like it's going to be farther off to the west now. But look at the clear skies on the satellite composite. So today is going to be fantastic. But as we told you, storms fire on Wednesday. So the Storm Prediction Center has placed all of western New York and northwestern Pennsylvania under a standard slight risk. That's a level 2 out of 5. That's everybody shaded here in yellow. And it's looking like the afternoon on Wednesday, mainly between 3 and 6 o'clock as it stands now, could be pretty eventful with some strong to severe thunderstorms with damaging winds and large hail. There is a small tornado threat. It is not zero, but it's not high either. It's a low-end tornado threat at this point. But again, the whole weather staff is going to be here throughout the next couple of days, and we're going to keep fine-tuning that forecast for you as we head into Wednesday. And as we head into tomorrow, speaking of which, we have a shot of breaking record highs across the area. It's hot, hot, hot. Y'all know that song, Feeling Hot, Hot, Hot? Now, tomorrow, the record high for tomorrow is 93 in the city of Jamestown, set back in 1933. We're forecasting 86. Again, we talk about this every year. Hitting 90 in the city of Jamestown is very hard. It doesn't happen very often, and we always get a little iffy on that. So we're not going 90. We're going 86 right now, but some spots well inland and especially some other areas may top 90. We'll show it to you here on Futurescan. Temperatures this afternoon seasonable into the 70s this afternoon. Tonight, it'll be nice and cool. Temperatures drop into the 50s with lower humidity. Watch the temperatures soar tomorrow. And again, look at these temperatures. These will likely be the high temperatures tomorrow. 82 Dunkirk, 84 Clymer, 85 Jamestown, 86 Randolph. Look at Erie at 90 degrees. And again, it's going to be very warm and sticky tomorrow. The humidity goes way up tomorrow, so you're going to be feeling that in the air. And it stays humid actually through tomorrow night. It's not going to be until Wednesday when we shove that cold front through the area. That makes it cooler, but that's also going to be our chance for showers and storms on Wednesday. Also, keep you updated on the weather. Download the official WNY News Now app, iPhone, Android. It is the best news app in the entire southern tier. These two guys right here, these two handsome guys, we make our forecast in-house. We're the only ones in the southern tier who make our forecast right here. So download the app. It's the best experience on iPhone and Android. Zone forecast, inland areas today, temperatures seasonable with low humidity. This is what it's supposed to feel like in early June. Enjoy it. Next 7 days coming up right now. 86 tomorrow, just plain hot. Wednesday, chance for severe thunderstorms, mainly in the afternoon hours as that cold front moves through. Look at the temperatures go down back into the 70s, and the weekend is looking much cooler, much like it was this weekend. Just a small chance for a shower on Saturday. Otherwise, Sunday will be our better chance for a little bit more shower activity, but only scattered at this point. Justin?
All right, Dakota, thank you very much. That's going to do it for us today. We leave you with a look at the military flyover that visited Jamestown and parts of Chautauqua and Cattaraugus County on Saturday. It was hosted by the National Warplane Museum, dubbed Operation Thanks from Above, and it consisted of World War II airplanes that you see there. They flew over UPMC Chautauqua Hospital to honor frontline workers, all taking place on the 76th anniversary of D-Day. We are back tomorrow. News continues 24/7 at WNYNewsNow.com. And as Dakota mentioned, when you're on the go, stay in the know by downloading our mobile app. All you got to do is search WNY News Now in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store.